How large is nothing? It seems like a simple question, a question a child might ask. But the moment you try to answer it, the moment you reach for its edges, the question itself begins to change shape. It becomes softer, more profound, and strangely, more gentle. Because nothing is not what we think it is. We imagine it as an absence, a lack, a void where something should be, but isn't. We picture it as emptiness, as a blank page, as silence between notes. We fear it. We avoid it. We fill our lives with sound and light and motion just to keep it at bay. But what if nothing is not an end? What if it is not a missing piece, but the very ground upon which everything stands? What if nothing is not small, but infinitely large? Not empty, but full of a different kind of potential? Tonight, we are not going to solve this puzzle. We are not going to define nothing once and for all. We are going on a slow journey into it. A journey that will take us from the room you are in now to the space between the stars, to the very fabric of reality at its smallest, most fleeting scale, and finally, to the quiet spaces inside your own awareness. This is not a journey of loss. It is a journey of discovery. You will find that nothing has structure. It has size. It has a kind of texture. And in understanding its vast, gentle nature, you may find that the things which feel so solid, so heavy, so full in your life begin to feel lighter, more spacious, easier to hold. Because when you see how much room there truly is in the universe, you realize how much room there is for your thoughts to simply be, to rest, to exist without pressing against anything. So let us begin at the beginning, not with a definition, but with a breath. Inhale and feel the space that fills your lungs, the space that allows the air to be there. That space is our first clue. Look around you. The screen you are watching, the walls around you, the very chair or bed that supports you. It all feels solid, dense, full. We trust this solidity with the weight of our bodies and our lives. It is the definition of something. But let us shrink our perspective, not to the size of a grain of sand, but 1,000,000 times smaller. Let us enter the realm of the atom. What we find here unravels our first, most basic assumption about the world. An atom is not a tiny, solid marble. It is a configuration of incomprehensible space. Imagine the nucleus of an atom, the dense cluster of protons and neutrons at its center. If that nucleus were the size of a single small pea, the nearest electron, whirling somewhere in the vast emptiness around it, would be orbiting over a kilometer away. Between that pea and that distant speck, there is nothing. No stuff, no material, no thing. Just empty space, a vacuum more perfect than any we could create in a laboratory on Earth. The solid wood of your table is, at its fundamental level, 99.99% empty space. You are not sitting on a chair. You are hovering at an atomic level, an immense distance above a cloud of specks held aloft by invisible force fields, the gentle push and pull of electromagnetic energy that prevents the electrons in your atoms from crashing into the electrons in the chair's atoms. The sensation of solidity is an illusion, a beautiful, necessary illusion crafted by the interaction of charges and forces. What you feel as pressure, as surface, as unyielding presence is really just a silent conversation between fields. A conversation that says, you may come this close and no closer. The thingness of the world is a performance, a dance of infinitesimal particles on a stage that is almost entirely stage. So when we ask, how large is nothing, we must first look at the something right in front of us. And we see that the something is mostly room. Vast, spacious, silent room, held together by the gentlest of touches. The universe began with this same principle, an unfathomable density of potential, which then expanded, not into anything, but as space itself. The room you are in now is a memory of that first primordial spaciousness, a pocket of structured emptiness arranged into forms that please our senses and support our lives. But the emptiness was here first, and it remains, holding everything together by letting everything be so very, very far apart. Now, let us step out of the room, out of the atmosphere, into what we call outer space. Here, our language betrays us. We call it a vacuum. The word comes from the Latin for empty. It suggests a perfect, absolute nothingness. But space has never been empty. First, the numbers. Even in the void between planets, in what we consider a pristine vacuum, there are still atoms. A handful of them in every cubic meter. Mostly hydrogen, the universe's most basic, most patient building block. Compared to the air in your room, this is nothingness of an almost unimaginable degree. But it is not nothing. It is a diffuse haze, a memory of the universe's beginning. Then there is light. Not just the light from stars, but the light that is the universe. The cosmic microwave background radiation, a faint, cold glow that permeates every cubic inch of the cosmos. It is the afterimage of the Big Bang, stretched and cooled over 13.8 billion years into a whisper of microwaves. If your eyes could see it, the entire sky in every direction would be glowing with a uniform, gentle light. The empty space is, in fact, a bath of ancient energy. There are also fields, invisible scaffolds that structure reality. The magnetic fields of planets and stars, stretching for millions of miles. The gravitational field of the galaxy itself, a gentle slope in space-time that guides the slow dance of stars. And there is dust, microscopic grains of silicon and carbon forged in the hearts of long-dead stars and expelled into the void. They drift for eons, and when a beam of starlight touches them, they can glow, creating the faint, beautiful nebulae we see in telescopes. So, what we name the vacuum of space is not a void. It is a medium, a thin, ethereal soup of remnant particles, ancient light, and invisible forces. It is a canvas. But a canvas is not nothing. A canvas has a texture. It has a presence. It is the necessary condition for the painting to exist. The silence of space is not the silence of absence. It is the silence of immense distance. The silence of elements so sparse, they almost never touch. And in that silence, something profound happens to our perception. The nothings begin to stack. The empty space within atoms is contained within the mostly empty space of the room, which is contained within the thin medium of the atmosphere, which is contained within the vaster, thinner medium of the solar system, which is embedded in the even vaster galactic canvas. Layers of spaciousness nested inside one another, each one larger, quieter, and more fundamental than the last. We are not moving away from things to find nothing. We are discovering that nothing is the thing. The foundational substance, the backdrop that has been here all along. The vacuum is not a place you arrive at. It is the condition you have always been within.
We have looked at the emptiness within matter. We have looked at the spaciousness between stars. But to find the fundamental layer of reality, we must go smaller, infinitely smaller, beyond atoms, beyond nuclei, to the Planck scale, the universe's smallest possible unit of measurement. Here, at the very floor of existence, our last notion of nothing dissolves completely. What we find is not emptiness, but a sea of potential. Physicists call it the quantum vacuum. It is not passive, it is not still. If we could peer into the fabric of space-time at this scale, we would not see a smooth, blank sheet. We would see a churning, bubbling, effervescent foam. The quantum foam. This is nothing in its purest, most raw state. And it is alive with spontaneous activity. Pairs of particles and antiparticles, virtual particles, constantly flicker into and out of existence. They borrow energy from the vacuum itself, exist for a fleeting moment, and then annihilate each other, returning the energy to the void. They are not real in the way an electron is real. They are more like suggestions of particles, ripples in the underlying field of all possibility. But their effect is very real. This ceaseless activity, this zero-point energy of the vacuum, is not just theoretical. We can measure its effects. It influences the behavior of atoms. It is the reason some stars shine. It is the hum of existence itself. The vacuum, therefore, is not empty. It is a plenum, a fullness of fluctuating energy. The ground state of the universe is not stillness. It is a vibrant, restless simmer. Think of it as the ocean on a perfectly calm day. From a distance, it looks flat,
still, empty. But if you were the size of an atom, you would see it is a chaos of moving molecules, of collisions, of energy exchanges. The calm surface is an illusion of scale. The quantum foam is that ocean, viewed from the size of a plank length. So, when we ask, how large is nothing, we have arrived at a beautiful contradiction. At its root, nothing is not large or small. It is fertile. It is a field of infinite potential, from which every something continuously emerges and into which it returns. The chair, the room, the stars, they are not exceptions to a rule of emptiness. They are temporary, stable patterns rising from this eternal, bubbling background. Ripples that have lasted long enough to cast a shadow, to have mass, to be felt. You are not a solid thing moving through an empty void. You are a sustained vibration, a gentle, persistent melody being played on the strings of the quantum field. And the nothing you fear is actually the source of everything you are. We have seen that nothing is not empty, even at its smallest scale. But now we must confront the most profound observation of modern cosmology. Nothing is not only full of potential, it is growing. For most of human history, we imagined space as a static stage, a fixed, infinite container within which matter moved about. We were wrong. Space itself is a dynamic entity. It can stretch, it can curve, and it can expand. In the late 20th century, astronomers made a startling discovery. The expansion of the universe is not slowing down as one would expect from the gravitational pull of all matter. It is accelerating. Something is pushing galaxies apart, not with force, but by creating more space between them. We call this something dark energy. But dark energy is perhaps the ultimate misnomer. It is not a thing in any conventional sense. It is not made of particles. It does not clump or gather. The leading theory is that dark energy is a property of empty space itself, a kind of latent tension woven into the fabric of the vacuum, a gentle, relentless pressure inherent to nothing. With every passing moment in the vast voids between galaxy clusters, new space is being created. Think of the universe as a loaf of raisin bread rising in the oven. The raisins, galaxies, are not moving through the dough, space, away from each other. The dough itself is expanding, carrying the raisins apart. Now imagine that most of the loaf is just dough, vast, empty, uniform dough. That dough is nothing, and it is making more of itself. So, how large is nothing? It is not a fixed size. It is a rate, an expansion. Every second, the volume of true intergalactic nothingness grows by a staggering amount. It is the largest, fastest growing thing in the universe, yet it is defined by the absence of things. This is the final layer of the paradox. Nothing has a geometry. It is not a passive background. It is the active, dominant component of reality, constituting about 68% of the entire universe. The matter we see, the stars, planets, you and I, is a mere afterthought, a slight impurity, a delicate froth on the surface of an ever-widening ocean of spaciousness. The cosmos, in its essence, is not a collection of objects. It is an unfolding of room. The lesson here is one of sublime perspective. All the things that feel so pressing, so immediate, so full in our lives occupy a fraction of what is real. We are not at the center of a universe of things. We are fleeting patterns on the surface of an infinite, expanding silence. The anxiety of filling our time, our minds, our lives with something meets its cosmic counterpart, a universe that is mostly and increasingly nothing. And that nothing is not a void to be feared. It is the canvas growing larger. It is the silence between the notes, without which there could be no music. It is the space that allows for movement, for change, for possibility. The universe is not running out of space. It is creating it continuously. And if the universe itself can be at peace with this vast, generative emptiness, perhaps we can learn to be at peace with our own. We have traveled from the room to the cosmos, from the atom to the quantum foam. We have seen that nothing is spacious, fertile, and expanding. But why does this idea so often feel unsettling? Why does silence make us reach for music? Why does a blank page trigger anxiety? Why do unscheduled hours feel like a void to be filled? Because we confuse emptiness with absence, silence with loneliness, space with lack. We believe that to be full is to be safe, to be valid, to be real. But the universe offers a different lesson. Consider your own awareness in this very moment. We think of the mind as a stream of thoughts, a constant chattering fullness. But look closer, in the spaces between the thoughts. There is a background, a witness, a quiet awareness that is not itself a thought, but the space in which thoughts arise and fall. That background is your own consciousness, and it shares a profound quality with the quantum vacuum and the cosmic void. It is spacious. Thoughts are like virtual particles. They flicker into existence, borrow your attention, interact, and then vanish back into the potential from which they came. The anxiety about nothing is a thought. The fear of missing out is a thought. The heavy weight of a problem is a cluster of thoughts, given density and permanence by the energy of your focus. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that contains them, the silent, spacious canvas upon which they are briefly painted. We fear the emptiness in our lives, the quiet evenings, the unresolved questions, the unmet expectations, because we mistake it for a cosmic verdict, a sign that something is missing. But what if that emptiness is not a flaw? What if it is the necessary condition for peace, just as the vacuum of space is the necessary condition for stars? The universe is overwhelmingly composed of a dark, expanding spaciousness, and it is not broken. It is whole. It is complete. Your mind, in its natural state, is also a field of spacious awareness. The clutter of worry is not its true nature, but a temporary weather pattern passing through. The practice, then, is not to fill the silence, but to recognize it as your foundation. Not to solve every thought,
but to see them as small, temporary events in a vast inner sky. When you feel the tug of, "I should be doing more," or "this silence is wrong," remember the geometry of absence. The universe is literally making more room for itself every second. It does not apologize for its emptiness, it generates it. You can do the same. You can allow a quiet moment to simply be quiet. You can allow a worry to exist without feeding it the story that it must be solved right now. You can rest in the awareness between thoughts, just as the cosmos rests in the vacuum between galaxies. Your problems are not galaxies. They are at most small clusters of matter in an immense personal universe. And most of your universe is silent, spacious potential, waiting for you to recognize it as peace. The fear of nothing is the fear of your own vastness. But in that vastness, there is no conflict, no overcrowding, only room to breathe, to be, and to let go.
So, how large is nothing? We have measured it in the gaps within atoms. We have felt it in the voids between stars. We have sensed its fertile churn in the quantum deep. We have watched it expand in the cosmic dark. But the final measurement is not one of distance or volume. It is a measurement of peace. Nothing is as large as the room it creates. The room for a star to shine without lighting up the whole sky. The room for a thought to pass without defining the whole mind. The room for a breath to be drawn and released without urgency. The universe is not a collection of objects competing for space. It is an invitation to spaciousness, an ongoing, gentle demonstration that existence is not about fullness, but about the graceful, generous allowance of room for everything and for nothing. Tonight, you are not just a listener. You are a participant in this spaciousness. The silence in your room is not an absence of sound. It is a relative of the interstellar void. The darkness behind your closed eyes is not an absence of light. It is a cousin to the quantum vacuum, full of soft potential. You do not need to fill it. You do not need to fix it. You do not need to fear it. You can simply let your awareness rest within it as a galaxy rests in the expanding night. Allow the nothing to hold you. It is large enough. It is soft enough. It has been here all along. This is not an ending. It is a return to the fundamental condition of things, a condition of quiet, of space, of rest. Let everything else drift. And as it does, notice how light your mind feels when it finally stops trying to fill a universe that was never empty to begin with.